And we will create the opportunity for shipping lines to set up shop over here.
Mr. Samara, if the Deputy Governor doesn't enable you, you cannot. So please, let's allow him to come in.
Fine.
Ladies and gentlemen, a round
Your
of applause.
Excellency, thank you very much.
It's the first point of call, the MPS Terminal 3, shortening transit time, reducing sea freight cost, and providing better sourcing opportunities. How about another resounding round of applause? We celebrate you, Mr. Samara, and your team for all that you do. Now, when Mr. Moses Baden challenges the Governor of the Bank of Ghana to make sure that regulation is in tandem with innovation, I believe it's fair that he responds by speaking to us on resetting Ghana's economy, policy response, and strategies for building a resilient economy post-COVID-19 pandemic. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Maxwell Opoku-Afari.
Your Excellency, good morning. Your Excellency, Dr. Mahamudu Bawumia, the Vice President of the Republic of Ghana, Honorable Ministers, Members of Parliament, Chairman of the 5th CEO Summit, Captains of Industries and CEOs, the media, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. It is always a great pleasure to be part of this annual CEO Summit. And I would like to thank the organizers for inviting me to speak on the topical issue, resetting Ghana's economy, policy responses, and strategies for building a resilient economy post-COVID pandemic. A lot has been said about digitization, so I want to focus on policy so that we put the two together. We are all witnesses to the ravaging economic, health, and social effects of the COVID pandemic on the global economy. Indeed, as we speak, some countries are going through either a second or third wave with its associated human toll and continuous economic devastation. As a country, we have also gone through these challenges, and the topic for discussion today is timely. Ladies and gentlemen, my remarks will start with two key questions. First, what was the state of Ghana's economy before COVID? Then second, what was the impact of COVID on the economy? Then we shift focus on strategies needed to reset the economy amid and post-COVID pandemic. On the first part, what was the state of the Ghanaian economy before the pandemic? Your Excellency, implementation of sound macroeconomic policies between 2017 and 2019 significantly improved the macroeconomic fundamentals of the Ghanaian economy. Broadly, the economy was characterized by strong growth, averaging 7% over the period, and inflation declining to single digits and within the Bank of Ghana's medium-term target of 8 plus or minus 2%. Unwinding of the large macroeconomic imbalances resulted in lower fiscal and current account deficits, accompanied by 3 consecutive years of trade surpluses, the first time we've had that in over decades. The country's reserve buffers also improved, providing some anchor to exchange rate stability. Public debt policies were strengthened and the debt profile restructured to lessen the repayment burden. This created some fiscal space to support the implementation of growth-enhancing policy initiatives by government. Alongside this, the Bank of Ghana implemented comprehensive financial sector reforms, which resulted in well-capitalized, strong and liquid banking sector, well-positioned to support the country's growth and transformation agenda. With this background, the policy direction at the start of 2020 was to further consolidate the achievements and move the country to the next stage of the development agenda. Consequently, prudent and complementary monetary and fiscal policies were programmed. First, monetary policy was to steer inflation further to low and stable levels. For the financial sector, the successful completion of the cleanup had improved prudential regulations, strengthened efficiency, and refocused the banking sector to its intermediary role to finance the growth needs of the country. Second, fiscal policy was geared towards aggressive tax reforms and pro-growth initiatives in the agriculture and industrial sectors to expand the productive capacity of the economy. And last but not the least, other structural reforms were initiated to increase efficiency of the public sector through digitization, and by so doing, formalizing the economy and improving the ease of doing business. Then what was the impact of COVID on the economy? Ladies and gentlemen, this was where the Ghanaian economy was at the start of 2020, until March, when the COVID pandemic disrupted the rather very strong economic outlook. The severity of the pandemic prompted restricted movements, lockdowns, and border closures to halt its spread. This resulted in a slump in economic activity and almost wiped off the gains achieved over the last 3 years. For instance, GDP slowed down to 0.4% at the end of 2020, the lowest in decades, compared with pre-COVID projection of 6.8%. Inflation spiked from single digit to double digits, peaking at 11.4% in July 2020, driven mainly by food price pressures due to the lockdown measures, before easing to 10.4% in December 2020. The disruptions in global supply chains adversely impacted trade activity. Businesses faced supply constraints amid weak consumer demand, which set off cost-cutting measures, including reduction in working hours, layoffs of workers, and wage cutbacks, worsening the unemployment situation in the country. Fiscal pressures from the health sector and the social consequences of the restricted movements mounted and disrupted the fiscal consolidation process. As a result, additional expenditures related to the COVID-19, coupled with revenue shortfalls on account of the economic slowdown and sharp drop in oil revenues, elevated the 2020 fiscal deficit to 11.7% of GDP, from the pre-COVID projection of 4.7% of GDP. These unanticipated fiscal developments also push up the stock of debt to 74.6% of GDP at the end of 2020 from 62.4% of GDP recorded in 2029. Your Excellency, the combined demand and supply shocks from COVID required decisive and swift fiscal, monetary, and macroprudential policy responses to moderate economic damage. The policy responses included fiscal stimulus packages, including several social interventions. To complement this, the Bank of Ghana lowered the monetary policy rate by 150 basis points and implemented other macro-prudential measures to ensure adequate liquidity within the financial sector during the pandemic. The push for financial digitization was intensified with the removal of transfer costs for minimum transactions on mobile networks and the Universal Quick Response Code for payments across banks, telcos, fintechs, and merchants were implemented to promote e-commerce and e-transactions. Ladies and gentlemen, the economic cost of the COVID shock in the terms of foregone growth in its implication for employment and poverty reduction, infrastructure development, and economic expansion are enormous and will require carefully crafted strategies to reset the economy back to stability and growth. On resetting the economy during and post-COVID, Your Excellency, lessons drawn from other countries on building back better from the pandemic indicate that a flattened COVID curve is a necessary condition prior to massive rollout of policies and strategies designed to reset the economy. The reasoning being that subsequent COVID flare-ups could potentially slow the economic process. Based on this, the short-term strategies to reset Ghana's economy should be able to first sustain the flattened curve that we see in the country at the moment. By this, priority must be given to health sector policies and other supportive measures. Tracing and treatment alongside mass vaccination rollouts should continue to achieve some form of herd immunity. The flattened curve will keep the economy open for business, provide some certainty to the economic outlook, and prevent diversion of resources to any resurgence of the pandemic. Second, we must maintain the COVID policy responses that we have introduced to sustain the ongoing V-shaped recovery. To a large extent, the COVID policy responses, that is accommodative fiscal and monetary policy, macroprudential measures, and other initiatives, have proved timely and helped moderate what could possibly have been a worse outcome for the Ghanaian economy. Already, the implementation of these policies have spurred some recovery in the economy, evidenced by improvement in the bank's high-frequency economic indicators for the first quarter of 2021. Inflation has eased and declined back to single digits in April 2021, reaching 8.5%. The exchange rate remains stable. Business and consumer confidence have bounced back to pre-COVID levels. The bank's high-frequency indicators have also rebounded to near pre-pandemic levels, and also the banking sector remains strong with the support of the macroprudential measures and continues to play its intermediary role to boost growth post-COVID. Over time, Mr. Chairman and Your Excellency, the strategy should include innovative and actionable macroeconomic policies to unwind the COVID-related fiscal excesses and lower the public debt to sustainable levels. Broadly, we need prudent fiscal policies in place to be able to anchor the recovery. And thankfully, the 2021 budget has already reset fiscal policy on a consolidation path, with the deficit projected to decline to 9.5% of GDP and unwind over the medium term to under 5% by 2024. This will ensure medium-term debt sustainability and achieve the set fiscal targets. Domestic revenue mobilization through tax reforms have to be stepped up. And here, the ongoing national digitization program will be supportive. Already, the Ghana card and TIN numbers have been merged, broadening the tax base. Over time, this is expected to result in some revenue gains for the government. We also need to continue expenditure rationalization programs that are pro-growth and promote value for money projects along the line. There is also the need for complementary monetary policy and prudential measures to be able to sustain the recovery. Monetary policy and financial sector policies should be designed to anchor the disinflation process, create supportive frameworks for credit enhancement, digitization, and enhanced payment platforms to support growth. We also need effective implementation of pro-growth, and that, in that case, the Ghana Cares program remains a strong anchor for that. The socioeconomic consequences of the pandemic needs to be addressed, and the Ghana Cares program is in the right direction. Among others, it seeks to stabilize, revitalize, and transform the economy to create jobs and prosperity over the next 3 years. We also need continued investment in the public health infrastructure over the medium term, and to be able to ensure that we improve the country's preparedness to adequately handle future health crises. Digitization to improve the business environment is very critical. Pushing the boundaries for the economy-wide digitalization through the measure of the national ID system or the Ghana card with other national databases to enhance transparency, facilitate seamless financial transactions, and reduce costs of doing business is very critical to the transformation and the recovery. In conclusion, Your Excellency, resetting the economy back to resilience will be a gradual process over the next 2 or 3 years and will require our collective and collaborative support and burden sharing to build back better. For the Bank of Ghana, we are committed to ensuring that the banking and other non-bank financial institutions remain resilient, inclusive, and supportive of resetting Ghana's post-COVID economy back to stability and growth. Thank you very much for your attention.
Dr. Maxwell Opoku-Afare is the first Deputy Governor of the Bank of Ghana. Ladies and gentlemen, one more time, a round of applause. And now, ladies and gentlemen, my pleasure to give to you the visionary behind this initiative, the CEO of the CEOs Network, the convener of the 5th Ghana CEO Summit, yours and mine, Ernest de Graft Ejiri.
Good afternoon to you all. We are happy to see you all today. On behalf of the Chief Executives Network of Ghana, I want to express our special appreciation to His Excellency, the President of Ghana, and the Vice President of Ghana. Anytime we have extended invitation to them, they have always joined us here. Can we give it to them? Some of the speeches they have given us leads to some calls of action that today I will want to mention. We have the SDG Advisory Office. Captains of industry are encouraged to liaise with the office to sustain the SDG Development Fund. In 2016, the Ghana CEO Summit was established, and we have led the digitalization agenda of this country to help the government shape policies in that order. Our call to action this year is that government looks at establishing a Digital Economy Act to help with the many initiatives that you have proffered. Your Excellency, the Vice President of Ghana, chiefs and captains of industry, distinguished guests, this summit comes at a pivotal time in our lives and in the life of corporate Ghana. This era has become defining in the annals of world commerce and has shaken the foundations of established order. The summit is therefore coming at a time like no other. The fact that we have had to suspend the summit for 1 year due to the pandemic speaks to the peculiarity of the moment. I am delighted, however, that this event comes to show that progress, even if slowly, is being made against the virus, and corporate Ghana is rising again. For indeed, it is a truism that many stories of success and glory are born of the ashes of tragedies. My apologies. This pandemic and the daunting prospects it held for business and industry challenges all of us to look at things anew. With the right spirits and attitude to a changing world. Changing times, fast-tracked by necessity and the difficulties of our time. Your Excellency, the experience of the last year and a half showed that subjects that had been on the slow burner, which had been discussed with the luxury of patience, can no longer be treated as such. If the theme of the summit has been focused on digital transformation, then it is because the pandemic has taught us a painful lesson of a new reality. A reality in which the gradual migration of the world from conventional orthodoxies in the way business is done has now become instant and complete. For the truth is that physical office meetings have now become obsolete. Presence in business meetings and transactions have been redefined. Hiring and location of work has become utterly malleable, and borders have all but vanished. We have suddenly woken up to the reality of a world in which the internet, once a luxury of the big dreamer, has now become the oxygen of business. We have become subject to the certainty of a new world marked and defined by safety, in which the physical workspace has become the very essence of risk. Ensuring the digital transformation of corporate Ghana and the overall infrastructural and regulatory space of doing business will determine the extent of progress in the corporate and economic space of Ghana moving on in the post-pandemic phase of our world. Yet, are we ready? Are we aligned with the needs of this world and the factors of change introduced by this new reality? Are we prepared to make the needed investments for the transformative agenda which is upon us? In this new reality, the truth is there will be losers and gainers. Old player may or must give way to new one. Values must and should change the heedless profiteering. That cannot be the main or the sole clarion call of companies leading the charge. In this new world, government may have to make some hard choices, and strong leadership may be called for in order to ensure that the social goods of the internet age is delivered. The hard issues have to be dealt with, and the approach with the zeal of people confronted by the real risk of disaster if nothing is done. This summit is a call for that kind of conversation and a charge for concrete policy interventions in order for corporate Ghana to be saved from the seemingly permanent scourges imposed by the pandemic. The choice of the theme, Your Excellency, is informed by the reality of the moment, but it also reflects ongoing government agenda at digital transformation, a tribute to the visionary foresight of your government. But as mentioned, the subject has now grown in form and complexity and can no longer be pursued in piecemeal and placed on the pedestal of incrementalism. The subject of digital transformation now demands stakeholder inputs and a comprehensive policy blueprint that incorporates the various facets of business, human rights, economy, and planning in general. The theme was chosen to re-emphasize the need to build the future of corporate Ghana around the foundations of digital transformation in the order of things. For the simple truth is that the world is moving into that phase. And with the advent of Internet of Things and AI technology, Ghanaian businesses must inevitably adapt or die. And given that the latter option cannot be contemplated, there's a need for all players to come to the table with a sense of knowledge and purpose. Hence the theme. Therefore, at the end of this summit, a communique reflecting the broad consensus arrived at will be issued, and it's our hope that Your Excellency, that this will feed into policy as you lead and drive the agenda on digital transformation of government. The panels have been structured to reflect the complex adversity of the issues raised. Given that this is the fifth in the series of the summit, a panel will review the contribution and impact of the CEO Summit to shaping the narrative and the development of corporate Ghana since its inception. This panel will provide the requisite background context for the summit and help forge appropriate conversations in the common action plan of CEOs and companies in Ghana, especially during this pandemic. Another panel will look at the vexed question of doing business in Ghana and how the environment, the business and regulatory environment, can be improved. This panel will review, in the minimum, the structural and systemic obstacles impinging on our impacting doing business in Ghana, and will evaluate the issues from the perspective of standard metrics and international instruments, including the World Bank Ease of Doing Business, business country assessment, and others. Finally, the panel on forging public-private dialogues will review the need of sustained dialogues between the private and public sectors. Building these synergies remain crucial, given that the distinction between the two are in many instances artificial in the light of the many interfaces that exist between them. This panel will look at the need for synergy and the adoption and implementation of the policies and recommendations coming out of these panels. I would like to welcome everyone to this summit, and I look forward to the most productive deliberations among us in the next 2 days. On this note, I would like to welcome you all to the 5th Ghana CEOs. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, Ernest de Graft Ejiri, CEO of the CEOs Network and convener of the Ghana CEO Summit. Thank you for your warm note of welcome. And now, ladies and gentlemen, the moment we've all been waiting for. Please welcome the Dean of the UPSA Law School, the Managing Partner of Access Legal, and the Chair of the CEO Network Ghana, Lawyer Ernest Kofi Abuchi.
Vice President, Captains of Industry, Ministers of States, and members of the Diplomatic Corps. The Vice President is a friend of this summit, who has, as indicated earlier, always responded positively when invited. Few people have the commitment and passion and the marching office and authority to speak to the theme of the summit than the Vice President. And it is therefore in light of that that I request respectfully that we all rise to welcome our guest of honor, the special guest of honor, His Excellency the Vice President of the Republic.
Thank you very much. Please be seated. Ministers of State, members of Parliament, members of the Diplomatic Corps, Deputy Governor of the Bank of Ghana, CEOs and captains of industry, distinguished invited guests, ladies and gentlemen, let me begin by expressing my profound gratitude to the Chief Executives Network Ghana Limited for organizing this 5th CEO Summit in partnership with Deloitte, the GIPC, and the State Interest and Governance Authority, SIGA. I wish to also thank the organizers for extending an invitation to me to deliver the keynote speech on the theme, Digital Transformation, Powering Business and Government Reset for a Post-Pandemic Economic Resilience, a private sector dialogue. Indeed, the organizers could not have chosen a more suitable theme for this summit for this year, 2021. Putting the spotlight on how digital transformation can unlock Ghana's economic potential in the midst of the COVID-19 pandemic is a worthy conversation to have now. Let me further express my appreciation to the Chief Executives Network Ghana Limited and other sponsors for organizing this annual event for the past 6 years. with the objective of continuing to provide a platform to give business leaders and policymakers the opportunity to engage on issues affecting businesses and the economy in the age of digital transformation. Ladies and gentlemen, building a resilient economy has been the focus of Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo's government since January 2017, when we first came into office. When we came into office, we immediately set ourselves to work. In the area of technology, I invited a number of companies, including fintechs and startups to join me to Silicon Valley. We engaged a number of IT solutions companies, experimenting with innovative ideas, doing research into different areas of applications from agriculture to medicine, in the delivery of financial services, and in machine learning or artificial intelligence. On our return, I invited these companies back to the Jubilee House and charged them to help provide solutions to our development bottlenecks and promised them our fullest support in any area of application, especially in 3 areas: how to improve the business environment, how to address government administrative bottlenecks in service delivery to households and to the business sectors, and how to formalize the economy. In 2020, the COVID-19 pandemic raged the world and severely affected all aspects of our lives. The pandemic undoubtedly affected businesses and economies globally, leading to immeasurable losses in various sectors. Key drivers of economic growth suffered. Business slowdown and disruptions in global supply chains and trade threatened financial markets and the financial system as a whole. The reverse multiplier effects and the imperatives to save lives put public finances at risk. Many governments prioritized lives over the economy. Soon, not only were we confronted with the challenge of social disruptions, but also the challenge of saving the economy so that we can continue to provide needed savings to households and businesses. A large number of businesses were forced to shut down totally, and others had to operate significantly reduced capacities. Ghanaian businesses were also significantly affected in diverse ways, creating high levels of uncertainty and a plunge in business confidence. Ladies and gentlemen, the world in the year 2021 continues to live in uncertain times and moving in uncertain directions. COVID-19 continues to put public health at risk. Nimbly, Ghana has made a combination of social and economic interventions and policy choices on many fronts. What Ghana has done and continues to do square well with the way advanced economies are carrying out the fight against the pandemic. And in some cases, we are doing even better. We continue to deploy an array of social economic interventions, temporarily lowering the bar on fiscal prudence, and continue to revise policy choices and interventions as needed. The central bank ably is doing its part, lowering interest rates, easing liquidity, mindful not to ignite inflation more than the economy can handle and more than what people expect. With the expectations that the pandemic will wane soon, the Ghana Cares program laid out a set of policy pathways and instruments to stabilize the economy and stimulate recovery in the shortest possible time. Ladies and gentlemen, what is left is how the private sector would respond to the policy innovations and interventions which government has put together. We will continue with our comprehensive efforts to save lives, safeguard the educational system, minimize interruptions in the educational system, ensure micro, small, medium, and large enterprises continue to thrive and continue to fuel the economy even as the pandemic persists. It is in the middle of all these challenges that we must continue to re-examine our ways and means of doing things, from home to the office, from the farm to the factory, between government and citizens and businesses, and vice versa. We must continue to challenge ourselves on how to deliver learning services, our conventional notion of the classroom, and how to deliver and manage our health system. It is absolutely imperative to reset and reignite business and the economy in these times to ensure continuous growth and development of the Ghanaian economy. The pandemic has presented a much-needed opportunity with which we can reset the economy while still building upon the solid foundation laid before 2020. The COVID-19 pandemic has demonstrated ample systematic flaws in the way we do things, including the way we conduct business, thereby requiring us to rethink and reorient ourselves and our businesses. We cannot succeed if we hold on to the old ways of doing things. If we want to survive, we will have to dwell on the lessons learned from the pandemic going forward. Our government continues to take steps to sanitize the regulatory environment for the conduct of business in Ghana. Our efforts at digitization, by working towards a cash-light economy, providing a framework for electronic incorporation and regulation of business entities under the new Companies Act and e-procurement, to mention a few, are all aimed at making it easier to conduct business in Ghana. I appreciate the fact that we can do more, and this is in this regard, I wish to extend a warm invitation to the business community to engage us on measures they will want the government to put in place to make it easier for them to do business. It is essential to mention that in our bid to reset business and the economy, digitization has an enormous role to play. One of the lessons the pandemic has taught us is that digitization is the future, a future that perhaps started yesterday. Businesses will by necessity have to integrate appropriate digital technologies in their operations and service delivery in order to increase productivity and output. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, one of the biggest issues that has confronted our economy and many African economies has been the highly informal nature, along with the manual, bureaucratic, and cumbersome processes involved in the delivery of government services. All of that increases the cost of doing business. We had a situation where over 90% of the population had no unique identity. There was no working address system. Over 70% of the eligible population had no bank accounts. Most transactions were cash-based. And less than 10% of the population had tax identification numbers. Clearing goods at the port was a nightmare. Obtaining driver's licenses, passports, or renewing your NHIS card were very problematic. Purchasing electricity units for your meter was a problem. Birth certificates and obtaining birth certificates and manual court processes and so on were inefficient and costly. And so this situation resulted in a difficulty in solving crimes, in higher interest rates at banks, delays in obtaining government services, lower government revenue, and so on. While this set of facts has long been recognized, no government had taken a systematic and concerted effort to address it. We just, over the years, lived with the problem rather than try to solve it. At the time, after I left the Bank of Ghana in 2009, beginning of 2009, of course, having just lost an election, I left the Bank of Ghana and then went out as a visiting scholar to Oxford University, where I wrote a book on monetary policy and financial sector reform in Africa. That period gave me a lot of time for reflection on what we had done since independence, and the book chronicles monetary policy and economic policy from independence through to 2008, basically. And I looked at the effectiveness of all that we were doing, particularly the question that kept, coming back to mind was, what are we doing? How come the interest rates that we want to decline are not declining? For the most part, monetary policy would bring down the monetary policy rate, will bring down the interest rates, but lending rates remain stubbornly high. One needed to really get to the bottom of this. Why are all these inefficient processes in the bureaucracy and so on taking place? It became obvious as I reached at the conclusion of that book that the macro, just getting the macro economy right was not sufficient. Getting inflation down was not sufficient. Getting exchange rates stable was not sufficient. There were certain micro foundations or systems that need to be in place for our economy to be able to deliver the low interest rates that will drive business and economic activity. But for the longest time, as we interacted with the IMF, the World Bank, and so on, you realize that nobody is going to come and tell you that these micro foundations, you have to put them in place. Nobody would tell you that if you don't put in a digital address system, we will not give you a loan. Or if you don't have a national ID, we'll make it a condition. So there were all these things which I refer to as the unwritten rules of the game. Because if you are in a game, you must understand the rules. If you don't understand the rules and you are playing, you will keep losing the game. But some of these rules are not written in our economic textbooks. They are unwritten rules, but you know that if you are an economy and you don't have a working address system, you're not going to go very far. If you cannot uniquely identify the population in your country, you are not going to go very far as an economy. You can have exchange rate stability and lower fiscal deficits and so on, but you are going to be just operating in a low-level equilibrium. You will not move up to a higher level. And moving up to the higher level is what we want to do. Now, if you look at the trajectory, therefore, that we decided to take, the government of Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo made the strategic decision to address these chronic problems by digitizing the Ghanaian economy and government services. The overarching objective of this digital drive is to formalize the economy, increase government revenue, fight corruption, and ultimately provide public services to citizens more efficiently and more conveniently. Digitization essentially removes the human interface. And if you look at the problems we had, whether it's at the passport office or the driver's license office or the ports or the births and deaths registry or the Ghana GRA Revenue Authority, all these interfaces, all the problems we were having in these different areas was because of the human interface. And as they say, nipa ye bad, the human interface, you will encounter corruption immediately because the systems were very bureaucratic and manual. And so we decided to digitize. And so we needed to put certain pillars in place. Issue national ID cards to all Ghanaians, implement a functional address system, provide de facto bank accounts to the bankable, those people who are eligible for bank accounts, implement mobile money interoperability, digitize the provision of government services, and so on. I'm very happy to note that we've made tremendous progress on all these fronts, and Ghana is clearly on its way to become one of the most digitized economies in Africa within the next 2 years. Specifically, we've issued a national biometric ID card, which no government has been able to do since independence. So far, we have 15.5 million people who have been enrolled, and we expect that this process for the above 15 years demographic, those above 15 years of age, that process will be completed this year. We will then move into the schools and do those below 15 years of age. But this national ID system that has been implemented has provided Ghana a database that will be the anchor for all transactions in the future. We're about to move into a new economy, if you haven't already realized that, because it is going to provide a single source of truth and a unique identity for all transactions across the spectrum. And so this year, what we've been doing since we came into office has been the integration of the national ID database with other databases, key databases. So we've integrated it with SNIT, we've integrated it with GRA, and with GRA, for example, up to 2016, TIN numbers in Ghana were 750,000. By just making the TIN number your national ID number, we've immediately increased it from 750,000 in 2016 to 15.5 million as at now, in terms of people with tax ID numbers. We have integrated the national ID with the NHIS, and we are moving on to Controller and Accountant General's Department. The ghost workers will not be happy, but we are doing that now. We are in discussions with the banks and the Bank of Ghana. The Bank of Ghana is driving, all bank accounts will be linked to a national ID number, and the process will start soon, and banks will start, once the process starts, they will start accepting and verifying the individuals using the national ID card. I expect, as the Minister for Communications and Digitalization will soon announce that we will all, from maybe end of June or beginning of July this year, everybody will have to register their SIM with a national ID number. So we all have to do that, otherwise we lose that SIM. And that will really give us a real identity for all Momo transactions, for example. And it then takes away fraud that is taking place, whether it's SIM box or through Momo and so on. We will discard all of that. We will also, we are also doing the births and deaths registry. The digitization there is about 80% complete now. But what we are putting in place with the births and deaths registry is a system where we hope from next year, when a child is born, right at birth, within a month, each child will be given a unique national ID number across the country. And that will help us maintain that database right from birth all the way to death. So it's really a different country that we are trying to move into. I know that it was a challenge. What we have done in Ghana was a challenge. When we met with the NIA and the Margins Group. Initially, they had wanted to issue very, very delayed cards because it was, but we said that given the nature of our people, you should do instant issuance of these cards, because a lot of the times if people have cards, they may not return for them. And we should try to do instant issuance. But they pointed us out that no country in the world had done instant issuance of national ID cards before. So we said, well, we will be the first. And we were the first. So thank you very much for making that happen. We've implemented a digital address system capturing every square inch of land or water in Ghana. In the process of implementing the digital address system, we have provided unique addresses for 7.5 million properties in Ghana. We have identified 7.5 million, including huts in all the villages, 7.5 million properties, and we are providing digital addresses and street addresses to all those houses and properties. The Land Use and Spatial Planning Authority has provided street names and house numbers for every unnamed street, and we are affixing address plates for every property, and we will continue to do that. There are 7.5 million. The first phase will deal with 4 million properties, and the next phase will deal with 3.5 million properties. We've already begun discussions, and they are going very well with Google, and if all goes well, they will incorporate Ghana's property address system into Google Maps, and we will move from there. This is the first time since independence that Ghana will have a complete property address system. And for businesses, nobody really needs to tell you the implications, the impact of having a unique property addressing system in the country. You just think about it, whether it's America or the UK or Germany, if today the address systems disappear, just the address systems, those economies will collapse, just like that. It cannot function without address systems. And so the opportunity cost of not having these address systems for e-commerce and so on is just huge. Delivery of services and so on is huge. And we are really very, very, very happy that Ghana has been able to do this. Of course, there's the groundbreaking mobile money interoperability, which has also been implemented. The mobile money payments interoperability has made it easy for transfer of money across different telcos and between bank accounts and mobile wallets. That is the unique feature of Ghana's interoperability. You're not just going between different telcos, but between bank accounts and mobile wallets. And since you have so much in the system, it has solved the major problem of people having access to bank accounts, because of mobile money interoperability, bank accounts or mobile money accounts are essentially functioning like bank accounts. The data shows that Ghana currently is the fastest growing mobile money market in Africa, and the total value of mobile money transactions in 2020 during this pandemic was 569 billion Ghana cedis. That's about $100 billion in 2020. It's just mind-boggling, right? Mobile money transactions in 1 year, because of interoperability, have reached $100 billion in Ghana. Now, checks, on the other hand, amounted to 180 billion instead of the 569 billion for mobile money. So checks are slowly, of course, I think it wouldn't be long, Deputy Governor. I think checks will soon be history as we go on. But when you think about it, we invested $4.5 million to set up mobile money interoperability. Just $4.5 million, and it's generating transaction of about $100 billion. So you see the impact of that, and on why this soft infrastructure can have far-reaching economic implications. You could have built an interchange, for example, for $50 million, but the impact on the economy would be much, much less when you look at this happening. So we are looking at this. We've also brought in the universal QR code, which is also unique in its own way, to reduce the dominance of cash in the economy. We needed a system which would bring in everybody. The point of sale devices that banks have are not accessible to your waakye sellers or the trotro or operators or your tomato sellers in the market or Kobe sellers. Those, systems, the point of sale devices are too expensive. But these are where a large volume of transactions are taking place. So if you want to go into a cashless or cash-light economy, you must have a system that allows electronic usage of these systems by every merchant. And this is why we thought that we should leverage on our mobile money interoperability, which everybody uses mobile money, bank accounts, and so on, and bring in a universal QR code, which is available to every merchant. Shoeshine boys can have their QR codes, and the QR codes are basically free to have. So everybody can have a QR code. Even beggars can obtain their QR code in case you don't have cash on you. They can, the beggar can give you their QR code, and then you can send them cash. We are catering for everybody. Nobody will be left behind. Even the YAM phones can be very, you can use a USSD code for the YAM phone, so it doesn't have to be a smartphone. But we're about to really roll this out in a big way, and it will really reduce a lot of cash transactions. And for a lot of businesses, keeping cash is a big risk with armed robberies, even traders traveling with cash. But with a QR code, universal QR code, anybody with a mobile money account or a bank account can use it. And the fintechs are doing their own QRs and so on. We are encouraging that. We move in this direction for people to get used to it and for cash to be reduced in our. But then you will have a lot more efficiency in the system. So today, the outcomes from our digitization drive are paying off. These initiatives are aimed at digitizing all sectors of the Ghanaian economy to ensure efficiency and ultimately achieve digital transformation. For businesses, a digital economy translates into a conducive environment for conducting businesses and for increasing profits. This year, we are going to be big in the land registry. This has been one area where we need to really complete the digitization process of the land registry, because land is really a major bottleneck in terms of business development, and so much capital is locked up. You don't know who owns it. Transferring it becomes a problem. And so we need transparency, and so we are doing that. Digitization of the hospitals is taking place, the senior high schools. There's a whole gamut. At least 90% of the senior high schools now are supposed to be covered. I hope they are all covered. And I think they are by free Wi-Fi now. And we are going to continue to doing that. To all chief executives and business leaders gathered here today, I encourage you all to diligently enhance your operations with innovative digital technology and to drive business evolution and for survival. Also, notions of sustainability and long-term value maximization must be at the core of the governance and operations of businesses. Businesses need to recognize and appreciate the contribution of social and environmental factors and interactions on their operations and output. To adequately prepare for the unpredictable occurrences such as COVID-19, we should focus on building sustainable businesses and an economy that will remain resilient even in the face of the crisis. The pandemic has taught us that businesses are intimately connected with society, and such intimate connection will require businesses to be responsive to the needs of all stakeholders. The attainment of the Sustainable Development Goals, as well as Agenda 2063, is an aspiration we must all continue to collaborate and work towards in our quest to reset the economy and businesses during the COVID-19 pandemic. We must remain committed to achieving these goals. I will take this opportunity to charge all decision makers of businesses gathered here today to take advantage of this summit to forge key partnerships that will constitute a formidable force in our bid to reset businesses and the economy. The fight is against a common enemy and not against each other. The exchange of ideas and resources is cardinal if we are to emerge victorious from the negative conditions created by the pandemic. Addressing the socioeconomic impact of the pandemic also required that we vaccinate as many people as possible against the virus in order to revitalize safe economic activity that will grow our economy. We vaccinated close to 1 million people, and we will do more subject to obtaining more vaccines. Our vaccination quest is a glaring testament of government's commitment to getting the economy back on track, and government will strive to ensure that a majority of Ghanaians are vaccinated in order to achieve herd immunity. We've now, however, decided to digitize the vaccination card, which you will receive when you get vaccinated, so that the card is now being embossed with a QR code, so that wherever you go in the world, when they digitally check your vaccination, they will see that indeed you have had 1 vaccination or 2 vaccinations, and therefore it cannot be altered. And this is the advantage of it, so that we become part of the global citizenry. And I think that that will be good for Ghana. I wish you all the very best in your deliberations, and we look forward to the outcome of your deliberations. And I thank you for your attention. God bless us, and God bless our homeland, Ghana. Thank you very much.
And in time-held tradition of this House, we shall invite you, the Vice President, for a brief moment of interactions with our moderator. Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated.
Apologies for dragging you back. So this segment is a short one, but it's an opportunity for us to have an intimate conversation in light of the things that you raised. So let's just get to it very quickly. Yeah. You touched on a number of things, and indeed, before the pandemic hit, everybody knew you were a crusader for the digital economy. And for some years, I'm sure it sounded a bit much of a luxurious conversation. The digital is out there. Then the pandemic hit, and the reality came home. We all know today that the digital space is no more an alternative. It is a necessity. The question is, are you happy, in light of all the things that you said, are you happy with the state of the rollout of the digital economy? And if you're not, where do we move from here?
Well, thank you very much. I must say, one of the important aspects of Ghana's digitization is that we have done it with the private sector. If you look at everything that we have done, National ID, an indigenous Ghanaian firm, leading the process, margins, Digital Address, another indigenous Ghanaian firm, the Bank of Ghana through GIPS is driving interoperability. So it has been a very collaborative effort that we have had between government and the private sector. Hospital digitalization, all of that is going on through the private sector. And so we have, if you look at what we have done, getting back to your question, I think we set targets for what we wanted to do. And so far, I think I'm reasonably happy. I am a hard taskmaster when it comes to some of these deliverables. But if you look at what Ghana has done just in a space of 4 years, it has been quite remarkable what Ghana has been able to do, what we as a country, the private sector, the public sector, what we have collaboratively been able to do in just 4 years. It is remarkable. We've played with this national ID card for so long. It was never happening. We now have it. A digital address is now a reality. Mobile money interoperability, we've done it for very low cost. The port system, we've digitized the processes, as you saw with the MPS presentation. The hospitals are being digitized. We are moving on to schools. So I want to, of course, see a faster digitization process, and this is what we've been pushing for. But in terms of what we've been able to achieve so far, I think Ghana can be proud of itself. We are the pace setters here in Africa. We are.
As you drive from the city to the countryside, I think the digital divide becomes clear. And the cities, Accra in particular, probably okay. But as you go to the countryside, for businesses that are spread across the country, in other words, businesses which have branches in the villages and in the countryside, this digital divide may become deeper if they depend on the internet and ICT space. Again, ICT companies have been criticized for not investing enough in infrastructure. So is there a plan, probably underway, to incentivize these companies to invest in infrastructure to ensure that coverage is absolute?
Yes. Prof, I think that the point is very well made. If you look at it, there's a clear digital divide in that sense between the rural areas and the more remote parts of our country and the urban areas. And so we need to improve our investment in infrastructure. And if you look at the work that the Ministry of Communications and Digitalization is trying to do, this is a clear objective of the ministry to bridge that digital divide. And we're encouraging the private sector also to move in that direction. So we want to definitely do so. Otherwise, we will have problems in achieving the full impact of digitalization.
Right. Closely related to this is the issue of data. Again, until the pandemic hit, some people were surviving pretty much without the internet and digital stuff. Now the digital economy, the digital space is an inescapable reality. So data has become, in some circles, a human rights situation. Some research has indicated that the average household spends about $2 on a 1 gigabyte, quantum of data, which has been estimated to be pretty high. So even though Ghana is doing well ahead of its West African neighbors, question is, are there plans to come down on the cost of data?
Yes, I think that you've touched again on a very important point. And this is why in the last budget, the cost of data was reduced. As you know, it is a major, we are doing well in West Africa. There's no doubt about that. And so we have to look at that in perspective. This is also why, for example, we're trying to provide free Wi-Fi in the universities and also in the senior high schools. The project has gone pretty far. Almost 90% of senior high schools are now covered across the country, so that people who would not have normally be able to afford data at current prices will have the opportunity to access. If we can get our schools done, we want to do all libraries. We have about 86 libraries, public libraries in the country. So far, the 16 in Accra have free Wi-Fi currently, as we speak. Right. And we want to roll that out to the rest of the country. We are now having discussions for Wi-Fi to the police stations as well. and all of that. And those will all be accessible. But I think that the issue of bringing down further the cost of data, this is what you are saying. Ideally, you would want it free, right? But we have to balance the interests of revenue generation on the one hand with also moving these forward. Yeah.
In your presentation, you mentioned the fact that you're trying to remove the human interfaces to avoid the prospects of corruption and all these challenges of humans, being in the mix of things. But you would also agree that as you remove the human interface, then the unemployment situation comes in as machines and the automated systems kick in. Question is, do we have plans to contain the fallout of the digital economy, which deals a lot with the non-human part of things, and therefore the unemployment situation, which is already acute? That's the first part, respectfully. The second part, sorry about that. I said questions, so sometimes I have a problem with questions. The second part, respectfully, is do we have plans of skills training that is consistent with the digital economy? Blockchain technology is out there, but you hardly hear of it here. And as someone in academia, it's a bit of a shame to us. The AI environment is going to create the same unemployment thing that I mentioned. So as you tie that in with the first question, I'll be happy if you can address the unemployment situation together with the skills training.
That's again another important issue. But if you look at where we are and how we are trying to use digitization to deal with this economy. In fact, the current systems, we believe, are costing this economy so much. The theft that is taking place at the ports because of manual systems, the savings government can make by digitizing can be invested in so many different areas to create more jobs, to move, into agriculture, industry, and so on, infrastructure. So there are many. You look at what we've been doing recently. The last 4 years, through bunkering and illegal activities, government has lost tax revenue of about 4.7 billion Ghana cedis. We have decided to digitize the fuel retail system, which we just rolled out. Now, if you save 1 billion cedis a year in revenue by that digitization process alone, what can you use to do it? Look at what we've done with drones. The remote areas of Ghana could not access critical medicines and blood supplies and vaccines, right? We've brought in Zipline. The drone services have started. This has created jobs. All these drone centers, we have 4 now. By the end of this year, we'll have another 4, which will cover the whole of Ghana. These drone services are 100% manned by Ghanaian flight engineers, 100%. This is jobs that it is creating. Last week I heard that they have come to Ghana to get a few to go to Nigeria to help set up a few Ghanaians to go. We are now going to be exporting that skill in that sense. So technology, historically, whenever new technology comes in, there's always a fear. You saw that in the Industrial Revolution, and there's always a fear about how is it going to impact on jobs. But we are in a much better situation in our stage of development than, say, a Germany or a US or a UK. They're in a very different stage. We still have major expansions to do in various parts of our economy. And we believe that if we bring in the technology in those areas, you will have more jobs, ultimately. You're not going to get many robots take over production in Ghana tomorrow. It will take some time before we get there. But we can really see opportunities in many different sectors where technology, whether it's in agriculture or industry, where technology can expand job opportunities. Entrepreneurs because of the availability of technology, will set up new businesses that they were not able to even think about 5 years ago. The new opportunities are coming up. Jobs, digital address system. Someone has written an application. They are employing people. We have some of the skilled people. Now, of course, you have to tailor your skills development to what is emerging. And you see that we are going to try to do exactly that. The skills development program to be able to, but we have very, very talented kids in the technology space, very talented.
Would have wished to ask many more questions, but this is the Vice President, whose time is very limited. Kindly please appreciate the answers. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Vice President of the Republic, His Excellency Alhaji Dr. Mahamudu Bawumia. And now, ladies and gentlemen, please lend your attention to the screen for a video preceding the CEO Awards.